Hi, my name is Chibuzo Enelama, and I'm a junior in Brantford College majoring in economics. I'm also originally from Lagos, Nigeria, and last year I served as the president of the Yale African Students Association. I'm pleased today to bring you one of our great virtual offerings for the 50th anniversary celebration of the Yale Afro-American Cultural Center, which we affectionately call the House. This session will focus on arts and culture, and you hear from our alumni who have made great strides in the arts, education, social entrepreneurship across the world to connect people across the African diaspora. Panelists will discuss their career paths and how they have worked to explore and expand the notions of Blackness, our shared histories, cultures, and futures from a global perspective. Our session features Ruth Bozzio, a Yale College graduate from 2009, Constance Collins, Yale College graduating class of 2011, Kevin Olushola, also Yale College graduating class of 2011, Wendell Ni Laire Ajete, who received his PhD from Yale in 2018, Olori Lolade Soyinbola, class of 2019 from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and is moderated by Kimberly Pinder, Dean of the Yale School of Art. Please be sure to visit our website at www.yaleafm50.com to learn more about these amazing speakers. We hope this session inspires you to strengthen your connection to the arts and each other across our beautifully international community, and we thank you for supporting the House's community.
My name is Kim Pinder, and I am the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Dean of the Yale School of Art. I am so excited to be the moderator today of the amazing conversation that I know we're going to have with our esteemed alums on the Zoom screen with us today. I just started as the Dean of the Yale School of Art last July of 2021. And I was excited to return as an alum. So I got my PhD in the history of art here at Yale a very long time ago. We'll say it was in the early 90s. And it's been really wonderful to actually come back to the place that all of us here on the screen had our own very special experiences and memories about, and to also return as a change agent for Yale to carry it forward into the next few hundred years, that it will definitely be around, and also churning out people like us that are here with us today. So for clarity and for efficiency, I'm going to have each one of you introduce yourselves and tell us who you are, where you are, because we have people from all over the world right now on this Zoom screen, and probably the year that you graduated, your major, and I guess your college. Since I'm a graduate student, I wasn't in a college, but I know how significant that is to your Yale identity. So I'm going to just kick it off with you. Wendell, you're on my screen, you're right next to me. So do you want to start us?
Sure. Good day, everyone. Thank you, Dean Pinder, for moderating the session. My name is Wendell Nilai Ajite. I'm Ghanaian by birth, Canadian by naturalization, American of sorts by circumstance for a few years when I lived in New England. I finished my MA MPhil in 2015 and my PhD in 2018, and was affiliated with Davenport College and currently in Montreal, Quebec.
Oh, Kevin.
I also have to second that. Thank you so much, Dean Pinder, for moderating this conversation. My name is Kevin Lucilla. I was Yale College class of 2011. I was originally 2010, but then I took a year off to live in China and study Chinese under the Light Fellowship. It was amazing. Loved it. And I currently am in my home studio, my music studio in Los Angeles, California. Oh, and I was Morse.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So Constance, you are the next on my screen.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Constance Darche Collins. Thank you, Dean Pinder, for moderating, and thanks to all the fantastic panelists. I'm looking forward to this. I was a Silliman 2011. And I'm currently in Kampala, Uganda. So it is nighttime for me right now. And my major, I was an FM major, very happy to be in that program and very excited to speak to you all today. So thank you.
So Ruth, you're the next on my screen.
Hello, everyone. Dean Pinder, it's a pleasure to meet you and to see some of you again. My name is Ruth Botio, Yale College, class of 2009, Berkeley. And I'm currently in Accra, Ghana, where I was born and raised before I traveled to Yale for college. And I'm here living out my version of for God, for country, and for Yale.
Lola, you're the last.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olori Loladeshion Bola. I graduated with my MA in African Studies in 2019, and I am currently in Jersey. There was something else you were supposed to share?
Well, you're a graduate student too, so
I didn't have a college, yeah.
Affiliated with a college, but you weren't in a college at all either. So, okay, so this is, I don't know if I did mention, this is the Global Arts and Culture panel, and I think you get a sense of that when everyone is telling you where they are and where they're from. And so I wanted to kick off with one question. This also allows you all to say a little bit more about what you're doing now and maybe even your trajectory, the path that led you there. All of you have pursued uplifting or representing Black people in some way in your career path. What key person or event early in your life encouraged you to do so? And I know everyone has, maybe it's more than one that kind of made you turn towards where you are today. So who wants to start us off with that? Anybody? Go ahead, Lola.
I see hands up. Yeah, it was a few things, but the biggest thing I always reference is, my mom taking us to see Malcolm X when I was 7 years old, and really being hit with the fire of his work. So I'm the founder of Nora Labs, where we inspire and operationalize Black liberation through art, technology, and community building. So I was very excited to see what you're passionate about, Dean Pinder, in terms of education through the arts. And I believe that, as Tony Cade Bambara said, the role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. So yes, my passion for film stemmed from that and from my mom's love of films. And so in my trajectory, the other major thing was my parents being, not undocumented and not being able to go back to Nigeria when there were deaths in the family and things like that. And so that made me very passionate about identity and really, healing Nigeria, healing our generation, but doing it through the arts because I myself was born an artist.
So wonderful. I love that. How about you, Constance?
Sure. So I am an educator, an international educator, and I've worked in Uganda, South Africa, the Congo, Switzerland, and I just love traveling and working with students and youth around the world and just seeing affirming their power and their cultural currency that they have and their bringing it out of them. But the people who have really inspired me, I would have to.
Oh, I think we lost you.
My mom was his.
Oh, Constance, I think we lost you. Is everyone else hearing her, but I'm not, or no? Okay. So Constance, we've lost you right at that cliffhanger when you were going to tell us who inspired you. So maybe you can log off and get back on so we can hear that answer, and I'll move on to Wendell.
So a few individuals have been inspiring in terms of my own journey from Ghana, Canada to the United States and then back to Canada. I certainly agree with it. My sister, is it okay to call you Lola? Is that, yeah? I mean, mentioning Malcolm X in any context will just make me smile and make me feel exceptionally grateful for such a remarkable African man, warrior, philosopher, king, lover of his family, lover of his peoples. I would certainly add my dad in terms of that equation. It's somebody who from the jump has been exceptionally inspiring and encouraging and teaching me what it means to be an African person in this world. And a member of sort of a long tradition of African peoples. Coming to Yale and finding out about the experiences of Dr. Edward Alexander Boucher, whom I proudly carry with me wherever I go, knowing that he was just one generation removed from bondage, that he was the first of our peoples to graduate from Yale College and then to obtain his PhD in physics, no less. It's, you know, just a handful of individuals in the Western Hemisphere. And it's such a moving reminder, such a humbling reminder whenever I think of somebody like Dr. Boucher, because as brilliant as he was, he never received his due. No institution of the day would hire him because frankly, he was just way more qualified than everybody else. And as an African and Canadian immigrant in the United States, I was especially humbled knowing the sacrifices of my distant kindred and what they've gone through, and the fact that somebody like me, whose parents don't have a high school education, I could go to Yale because of the sacrifices of somebody like Dr. Boucher and generations of African Americans who literally paid the price of admission and blood and sacrifice. So this is such a great reminder, not just to myself, but of course, all of my loved ones as well, what it means to be an African person in an African world, constantly struggling and you know, working towards our liberation, especially as Sister Lola put it, in terms of understanding what liberation is, even in the context of the arts. So these are just some of the individuals who give me a sense of drive and purpose.
Thank you. So Constance, I just want to jump back to you because you were just about to tell us who was the pivotal person for you, and then we lost you. Oh, we still have lost you, I think. Oh, sorry. Well, Kevin, we'll just we'll keep moving along and we'll get her when she can get back on.
Sure. I've really appreciated these answers so much, especially talking about liberation, because I think one of the things that looking from the outside in, I think a lot of people think when you look at Black people, we should be doing a certain thing or one type of thing that is stereotyped.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing is that we can stand in our Blackness being exactly who we're supposed to be and called to be. And then that helps the diaspora not only expand, but give people from the outside an idea of what actually Blackness is. And I think that's so beautiful. I think about my parents. My dad's from Nigeria, my mom's from Grenada. So when they came to the United States and married, you know, they always said, be extraordinary and uncommon. You cannot be like everybody else. And you cannot be ordinary, because if you do that, the African diaspora falls back a little bit. You have to show people what it means to be great. And so for them, when they said that, they meant, you know, coming to the United States, being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. The fact that I went into classical music, even though I loved it, I think they were a little taken aback by it. But to know that I can be fully me, fully you see me the way I look, but actually have this passion for a music that's not supposed to be for us, right? It's a European aristocratic sound. But how can you take that and leverage it for our people who may need this type of frequency in a way that maybe they can hear it because of the way that I may present it? So I think that's the beautiful thing about like what we get to do as artists. We get to stand fully in who we are and represent Blackness in the way that's authentically us, and being liberated from people's ideals, thoughts, stereotypes, and stand in love in that way. So I wanted to say I really appreciated that, and hopefully that explains a little bit of my answer, where I think my influence comes from in terms of my parents.
That's great. Thank you. So Connie, can you talk to us now? Can we get you back on? Still don't hear you.
I
Oh,
work
here you are.
sometimes. Am
There
I
you are.
still?
Go
Okay,
ahead,
I am
talk.
hoping that. Let me talk fast.
Okay.
I have to say that my mother was a huge inspiration for me. She really encouraged me to like follow my passions. And so when I started traveling solo, I started, going for months at a time, traveling solo. She really encouraged me, and she didn't hold me back. And I know that, like, as a young Black woman traveling in different countries by myself, like exploring, there's danger in there, but my mother really encouraged me. And also I have to shout out my stepfather as well, who literally helped me to continue in my journey by donating a kidney to me. So I've had 2 kidney transplants, and the donors. So my first donor was my stepfather, and my second donor in 2020 was a deceased donor. And I have to say that their selflessness, and both of them were Black men, their selfless gift, one in death and one while he was still alive, is such an inspiration to me, because they're able to help me to keep my life going and give me a second and third chance at life. And this is something that, as a global advocate for organ donation, I use them as a huge source of inspiration. And everywhere I go, I tell my story and tell the story of the selflessness that comes with organ donation, and use my testimony as a way to inspire more globally. So these are my inspirations and my students, but I'm not gonna keep going. There's so many inspirations in my life.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you got to that story, because I read that in your bio. That's pretty amazing. I could say a little bit about who inspired me, but I would say my parents as well. And I'm gonna jump and show you my Yale graduation picture, which is like a huge thing that I keep in my wallet. My mother, both my parents grew up in rural South, and were not always educated. My mom actually ran away at 14 from South Carolina, a small town, to go and live in the big city. And because she was determined not to end up pregnant soon at 14, and stuck there on a farm. And that determination has always driven me and my siblings fully to admire how she just said no and ran away. So, and just that kind of, we all felt that we had to be accomplished and to do something because of the risk that she took. And my father also left the South, but he joined the Army to do that when he, again, lied about how old he was. So he'd get in the Army when he was like 15, said that he was older. So their determination to break the cycle of what they were living in terms of Black poverty, that has always been like the base level of why they never had to tell me to get A's or to do anything above average. It was a given that I had to do that because of them being able to put me where I am, because of what they went through. So that's definitely, parents are really important. So I want to move on to the next question that I sent to you guys, and I'll read it out for all of our viewers. We are in such an important moment in history right now, another surge in the enduring civil rights movement. And I like to put it that way because it's so easy for many people in the world to forget that this isn't new. This isn't the beginning. It's just another phase in a very long civil rights movement, right? I always like to it rubbed me the wrong way in 2020 when people would always start things because of recent events. It's like, well, yes, we had some recent events, but we've had many events that were similar for about 400 years. So I even started it titled an essay that year saying, these are not recent events. So we are in another surge in this enduring civil rights movement, one that will only be over when there is true equality everywhere. And that's why it's a continuum. Although we love to think of history as these like incidental moments, right? What hopes and fears do you all have for where we will be on the other side of this surge, of this moment, 5 years from now, or maybe 15 years from now? And I've been asking a lot of people that, you know, because there's so much media frenzy around racial equality and reparations, restorative justice. So where are we going to be in this dialogue? What do you think in 5 years? How about starting with Kevin with this one?
That's a really good question. You know, this is something that with my bandmates, we're all completely different. You know, we have two gay bandmates. I have one bandmate that's also Black and another bandmate who's of Hispanic descent. And I think this all impacted us so differently because I think they didn't, I think in certain ways, they realized that, as you said, there were issues in the past, of course, that happened, but they didn't realize in certain ways how devastating and real this still is. And so one thing that we actually talked about together is how do we, being so different as a band, continue to be a beacon of light to what we want the world to look like, ideally. We sang this song, John Lennon's Imagine, and what was so cool about it is like, imagine the world being kind of almost a utopian society, right? And that's obviously the hope. But for us five, I think what I love is people see us and say, there's not one person that is the same. It's not like a One Direction band. Every single person is a white male and they all sing a lead. Like, no, every single person is so different, but they get along so unbelievably well with their differences. You know, there's differences in where they grew up geographically. There's differences in terms of how they think and believe. And obviously the structure of America is so, the infrastructure is so fractured, right? So I think as an artist, what I hope we can do as a band continuously is shows like, yes, this infrastructure is broken, but we as people can still be united. And let's continue telling that story of the beauty of what happens when we stay united. Because I feel like a lot of times that story isn't told enough and needs to be told so much more. And from that, okay, if this is possible, soft diplomacy, maybe there's some hard diplomacy to actually back up the fact that we can do these things together in a united fashion. That's kind of my hope for the next 5-10 years, especially now that I have a daughter who, you know, my wife is Caucasian and we have a mixed child, and we keep thinking, how do we do exactly that for her so that she can stand in who she is, being mixed, and feel like she can be exactly who she is, understand the issues around, and she could also stand in herself and be an advocate for all of it. That would be my hope.
How about you, Lola?
That's an amazing question. Thank you, Dean Pinder. You know, and I love Kevin's answer as well. For me, you know, the work that we do at NOR Labs is very much, we're very intentional about crafting a liberated Black future, you know, through storytelling, through curation, through community building. Our work is to help deliver, you know, the new world, the liberated future. And so we're constantly thinking and talking about, you know, if you join our newsletter and get our you know, our mail outs, you'll get a bit of a glimpse into that new world that we see, you know, and I love your question asking about hopes and fears. And for me, I have no fear. The only fear that I have is that we won't do what's needs to be done, but we're doing it. You know, when I look around at our generation, especially those of us here on this panel, and so many of us, I'm just totally blown away by our passion for liberation. Even those of us who are not, you know, proclaimed, we're not self-proclaimed leaders or people who really want to change the world. We're naturally, you know, changing the world. We're embracing a way of being that puts humans first that centers joy, that centers wellness, and so for us, liberation is from within. Our mantra is liberation from within. And what that means is that every individual, especially Black people, but ultimately everybody is free when Black people are free, is that every individual has the opportunity to actualize their highest self, to become who they're meant to be. You asked the question, and I hope we'll get to that later, about why we're here on Earth, right? Why are we here on Earth? How can our education help us to figure that out? How can our education help us to actually live that out? So 5 years from now, 15 years from now, I am just excited to see, new currency, new modes of, economic exchange. I'm excited to see the Black dollar circulating within the Black community in the US, in the global South, on the continent, 10 to 100 times before it leaves a Black pocket. I'm excited to see new cities being built. Cities that are smart, cities that center wellness, cities that are clean, and that center, self-actualization. And I'm excited for the hostage takers on the continent to be removed and for the young people to take power. I'm just excited for young people to take power everywhere, and for art to continue to be, and even more so every day, art becoming a powerful tool for liberation. So I hope that answers your question. I could keep going for a while.
Yeah. How about you, Constance?
Sure. I work in education, and I'm just going to speak to the hopes and not the fears.
Okay.
I see the young people now, our young Black brothers and sisters, and I see so much political efficacy, so much empowerment, open-mindedness, and I see a lot of pushing against adults. And I think that that's what it takes to push against power, and to stand up to power as well. I know you mentioned, Dean Porter, 2020, and how some people say like this was the beginning. But if you looked at and obviously that is incorrect, but also if you look at the movements and the marches and who was actually leading the protests, they were young people. They were all young people who would not let it rest, and they would not take no for an answer. And that is the sort of energy that we need to push forward towards liberation. We need people who will not back down when oppressive forces, powerful forces, whatever you want to call it, say no or try to knock you down. They get right back up. They use social media. I know a lot of people have things to say about the uses of social media for young people and how it's damaging. I know that there are some pitfalls, but they are using it in a way to spread these messages of anti-hate, anti-homophobia, anti-transphobia, anti-racism, and spread to spread the word that they're no longer like taking any, I'm not going to say the word, but they're really about it. And I appreciate this energy. And I hope, and I truly hope that they take this energy, I know, into their adulthood. And I see a more politically engaged subset of young people. I see the world recognizing more of the beauty and the wisdom of our Black children. And I see them recognizing it in themselves as well, which is amazing. And so many examples. They have so many leaders and so many folks to look up to. When I see like the natural hair and like embrace your dark skin, and 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, like, yes, I love my dark skin. I'm like, yes, this is not the rhetoric that we were, sharing when I was younger. Just to be honest, there was a lot of unlearning to do about about my own skin and my own hair. And now you have 9-year-olds like, yes, I love my, kinky hair. And I think this self-actualization is happening a lot younger and a lot earlier. And I just hope that we keep that momentum. So they got it.
Yeah. How about Wendell? Would you like to respond?
Sure. One thing that gives me much hope is that we need not reconstruct the wheel. There's a blueprint in terms of what liberation ought to look like and can look like for Black people, for African people in the United States, they're in Canada, the Caribbean, on the continent, wherever. And in fact, from Marcus Garvey to the great Malcolm to Assata Shakur, I mean, we have had some of the greatest revolutionary thinking minds, and revolution not in terms of weapons, but in terms of the power of the African mind to reconnect to the African roots, to our ancestors, to our indigenous spiritual systems and practices, et cetera, and how that can firewall our children and our peoples in terms of just all the nonsense that we have to deal with. So that blueprint is absolutely there. It gives me a great deal of joy when I read these individuals and I can ruminate on their words and their aspirations and hopes. What gives me much anxiety and concern, however, is that too often Black folk get a bait and switch. So whenever there's great upheaval, whether we're going back to the freedom struggles of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, or this more recent struggle of 2020, a few upwardly mobile elite Black people will become more elite and more upwardly mobile. And the masses, and I'm thinking of, I guess, a younger me before my circumstances, my material circumstances changed. I'm thinking of my nieces and nephews who are still residing in housing projects and so many others like them. That this trickle from the top down liberation doesn't work. It has to be from the bottom up. It has to be sort of a mass movement. And anyone who purports to do on behalf or in behalf of African peoples, if they're not mindful of the masses and our most vulnerable members, whether they're in the Mississippi Delta, whether they're in post-industrial Detroit or Harlem or Cleveland or Racine, Wisconsin, then they're not leaders. Then they're not engaged in the project of liberating African bodies, spirits, soul, et cetera. And so that's what I constantly wrestle with.
And Ruth.
Yeah, so I would start by touching briefly on my inspirational motivation and the path I've chosen. And I would say it would be my grandfather, Kojo Botio. He was born Robert Baden-Powell Botio, but when he met Kwame Nkrumah, who sold him the idea of Ghana's liberation and indeed Africa's liberation, they decided to change their name and take on indigenous names as part of the identity that they felt would empower the Black person. So he changed his name from Robert Baden-Powell to Kojo Botio, and he lived a life that breathed and lived, and in fact was prepared to die for Ghana and Africa. And for me, growing up and being able to interact with him up until he passed away, I was about 15 years. Up until that period, it was very impactful for me because I saw an example of somebody who believed that the Black man was able to steer his own affairs and take charge. And despite all the upheavals that had happened in Ghana's history, political history, and other African countries' histories, he never let go of that hope. I mean, this is someone who lived through several coups d'etats, who was on death row, but he always believed that Ghana was the Black star of Africa, that African people were able to take charge of their own affairs and make a difference and tap into their resources to develop the continent. So for me, it was very inspiring. And then coming to Yale, I encountered a whole, new culture of what it meant to be Black. And it was confusing at times. But I feel like by the time I left Yale, I had realized what my grandfather had been able to teach me, that the Black man is the same everywhere. And our unity is what will propel us to develop as a group and have the kind of impact that we want to have. So on to what I see about the civil rights movement, it's gratifying to see that partly due to the rise of social media and other tools that allow us to connect across the globe, it's very gratifying to see that the challenges I faced as an African in Yale, being classified as African American, people here in Ghana or young people here in Ghana don't perceive so much, because now more or less the world is linked. They understand or they interact with people who are also Black but maybe speak differently or have had different backgrounds from them. So I believe that the rise of social media and other tools of exchange have helped to define a better narrative of what it means to be cohesively Black. And I'm very happy about that. When the Black Lives Matter movement started, I could see Ghanaians everywhere picking it up, understanding the issues, supporting it. So that is what I want to see in 5 years. That is what I want to see in 15 years. I want to see Black people all over the globe more united in a common cause, because we as a people were separated at some point, but we are one people, and our development, wherever we find ourselves geographically, depends on that mutual relationship. The Ghanaian government has a policy of, welcoming African Americans home, granting them citizenship. I'd love to see more people take that up. I'd love to see more exchange of ideas. I'd love to see Africans caring about African American issues and African Americans caring about African issues. And for me, that is the new frontal or the new frontier of the civil rights movement.
I think that leads us into our final question, right? Because you're saying what you'd like to see in 5 years, and that is where we're speaking to the people on our audience members. I hope so. How do we take those messages that you all are saying that are hopeful, but also directives, right? How can we explain to young people today, such as maybe some of the current Yaleys that are watching this panel today, what a legacy is? You've mentioned some, you just said, Ruth, your grandpa changing his name. That is a legacy, right? How can we explain what it is and why they should want one? And that's where we get to, why are we on Earth? And I have to just mention that I have 3 children. The youngest just turned 17. And because of the pandemic, I was home with them in 2020, and we sat around, and I was heartened to hear that their maybe somewhat resigned attitude is, well, we're going to be here to fix the mess you have left us. They feel like they're, rolling up their sleeves. That's what their next 20 to 30 years is going to be, is rolling up their sleeves to fix what we have left, right? So I'd love for you all to think about, what do you say and what have you said to young people in the work that you do? Some of you are working directly with students, with young people every day. How do you talk about a legacy? Who wants to start? Lola?
Thank you. Wow. So I'm a mother too. I have a 12-year-old, and I recently adopted my partner's 6-year-old. And, I do this work for my daughter. My daughter inspires me. I had suppressed a lot of things that, I had suppressed a lot of things that were not appropriate in terms of my creative side and not fitting into lawyer, doctor, engineer, boxes that Nigerians like to put us in. And so for me, legacy is every day teaching her, every day teaching them, making sure that they understand the truth of the world, and that they are equipped to fully actualize, to become their highest selves, right? But even beyond that, the work that we do, and I really want to speak to Black Yaleys, because we have so much power. We are so fortunate, to whom much is given, right?
Yes.
We're extremely fortunate. And I was speaking to my partner recently about, what it would look like if Black people with means came together and just solved a few problems, and just said, okay, we're going to end this, we're going to end that, we're going to end, we're going to end hunger, we're going to end homelessness, we're going to end, police violence, right? Because we have the resources, we have the reach, we have the talent to make sure that these things are just no longer an issue. And so for me, legacy looks like, really taking the work of our generation seriously. If you are a Black person on this planet, then you must be aware that anywhere on the planet, Black people are the most downtrodden, right? Anywhere you go, even if you have trillionaires down the street, you will find, some Black person in poverty somewhere, or without medical care, or, without whatever minimum requirements for the human experience. And so when we have, it is our responsibility to eliminate those realities for other people. And so for me, legacy looks like the elimination of suffering, of unnecessary suffering of people. And I think that happens, just like what Ruth was saying, that happens through our unity as Black people. That happens through us understanding where we come from, who we are, being deeply passionate about the work and the groundwork that our ancestors have laid for us, the benefits that we enjoy because of those sacrifices, and being committed to making sure that our children will not have to clean up our messes, that they will be able to enjoy from the work that we've done. So for me personally, that looks like making sure that as many people as possible speak African languages and are connected to people from across the globe and are fulfilling their purpose in life, and centering in that the liberation of Black people.
Okay, who's next? Wendell?
When I think of legacy, I think of sacrifice. Who's sacrificed for you? Whose struggles, whose tears, whose blood and an actual life has enabled you to enjoy the privileges, power, etc., that one might enjoy. And certainly in my own family, my own ancestors, I mean, this is a daily reminder. But I am an African man living in an African world, and in North America, and particularly in the United States and Canada. I have many elders who have sacrificed well before meeting me in terms of making these societies a little bit more accommodating and hospitable. And so I'll share one of them with you. He was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in 1922. In February. So we just celebrated his centennial birthday. This is a man, of course, who was born in the heartland of anti-Black racial terror, Jim Crow. He served his country, a country that would never serve him, but he served this country in World War II, wounded twice in battle, Purple Heart recipient. Afterwards, obtained a doctorate in economics, contributed to the civil rights struggle. But this is an individual, when I think of legacy and what it means to inherit the good graces, the favor of our elders, those who preceded us. This is what I'm reminded of in terms of legacy. And so when I speak with the Yalees and those who are searching their own path to give back in this world, I'm constantly reminding them of the importance of paying it forward, because there's no way that we would have that opportunity of going to an incredible institution like Yale and having a full ride and all these other things if someone hasn't sacrificed in and on our behalf. And so legacy and sacrifice for me go hand in hand.
Great. How about Kevin? I know we're coming to the end here, but I still want us to all weigh in here.
No, this is such a big and good question, and I've loved the answers so far. And I think I would piggyback off of that. Like, this is an opportunity that we have to pay it forward. Legacy to me is about who did I touch and who did I love through the giftings that I was blessed with. And Yale's especially Black Yalees, have such an amazing opportunity to do that because you have the highest education on earth. So use the highest education you're given to serve in the greatest, most nuanced way that you possibly can. You have an education that allows you to understand nuance in ways that people may not have that same opportunity. So it gives you more interesting, complex ways to serve complex, so to answer complex questions. I think about, being somebody who has come from Yale, and now I'm a classical musician who's also in an a cappella group. And I have this really uncanny opportunity to spread so much love every single day and serve people with something that I think a lot of times is overlooked. And it makes me sad that art so many times is overlooked because it's not hard diplomacy. Or people say, and I hate saying that word because I think it's all diplomacy in my book. But there are so many people that need the love of art. They need the love that is stemmed from music to penetrate their soul and maybe even see things differently. I remember going and living in China and having these really amazing interactions with students that lived outside of Beijing. They call them the Nongcun. Nongcun means kind of the village. And for them to see somebody that looks like me and having great interactions with somebody that looks like me, when a lot of times there was an idea that people that look like me act a certain way, even in China. And those perceptions got to be changed because of those favorable interactions. Having more of those favorable, loving interactions as they grow up and they become the leaders, the business leaders of their countries, the way they will look at Black people going forward as they become maybe millionaires or billionaires or whatnot, what have you. That's helpful to us because we have shown love to people that don't look like us. And that helps the whole story of liberation. And so I think just the amount that we can serve in our communities and outside of our community so that they see us, it's going to change the game and it's going to change the world. So that's what I see in terms of legacy, just serving as many people as we possibly can in that way.
How about you, Constance, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you all for your really insightful responses to this question. It's really got me thinking a lot. I know we talk a lot, at least in the education spaces, about inherited generational trauma. And while that is certainly something that we have to navigate and deal with, there's also inherited generational power that we have inside of us, within us, and wisdom and strength that we can draw upon just based on our ancestors and what they have passed down to us from their bodies, years and years of having to overcome. We're only here because of them. And this is part of the legacy that we can leave for our children, for the people that we touch. Also, I have to speak to, what Ruth was speaking about, unity. This is what I would share with the current youth. Our legacy rests in our ability to unite across difference, unite across the diaspora, the African diaspora. Yes, we may be African American, Caribbean American, African, Nigerian, Congolese, etc. But we're Black people, and there's so much power in us uniting. And it has been intentional by many powers that be for us to divide and separate us, because they recognize the power that rests in our unity and us coming together as Black people and standing up against the oppression and the injustices that we face for centuries. So that unity is super important for us to come together and go to Ghana, go to Nigeria, go to these places and be with people, sit with people. And lastly, I'll say, as Yaleys, we have access to power, privilege. We will have access, you all will have access to seats at the table, being in rooms that other folks don't have access to. And
Yes.
what are you going to do with that? That's the question. Like, are you going to just reinforce the status quo, or are you actually going to make change? And yes, making change, there is risk that comes with that, especially speaking up in places where you're expected to keep your head down and just keep moving. But just remember that we are worth it. Black people are worth it. Like, we are worth the risk. So take the risk. We are worth it. And that can be your legacy. There is no one who has left a legacy on this world who did not take a risk, stick their neck out for the rest of us. And I actually do have to put in a little plug, because we are, Wendell talked about sacrifice. Black people in the United States and globally are the least likely to receive organ transplants. And one way that you can leave a legacy even in your death is by being an organ donor. So just check that box. That is a way. The legacy lives within me, literally. This young man who passed away October 26, 2020, he still lives on because he made that sacrifice. And that's another way that we can leave our legacy. Thank you.
All right. Well, Ruth, I don't know if you want to say a little bit more. You did talk about legacy with your grandfather, right? If you want to talk a little bit more of that, and then we'll end the program after that. But I want to thank you so far for your answers and some of the great things that I've been writing down here. But go ahead, Ruth, if you'd like to say something.
Thank you, Constance. That was very, very moving. And I'll share that, because of you and your story, several times when I'm in the UK, I try and find out more about organ donation. So I'd encourage everybody listening to us to definitely take it up, because, legacy is living on after you live. I will define legacy in terms of having a cause, because you cannot leave a legacy if you do not have a cause. So I would say that it's very important to be passionate about something. As Black people, you can have several causes, but it's key for one of your causes to be tied to your identity, because that is how people call you out, or how people see you or label you all the time. So one of our causes should be tied to our identity. And that cause is what will cause us to leave a legacy. I'd go to the good book in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17. It says, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless. So any call for anyone to leave a legacy is essentially a call for you to have a cause. What do you believe in? What are you passionate about? And we should, as Black people, have to try and tie that into the people that we represent, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. So if my cause is within education, I should have a special passion for the education of Black people alongside everything that I do for everyone else. So I'd say to the younger Yaleys that think about what you're passionate about, think about it in terms of identity, and see how you can make an impact. And then surely there's your legacy before you.
That is wonderful. That is so great to end on. I feel like you've wrapped it up there. Find something that you're passionate about. And we all know that we were Yaleys and still are, who are lots of passion, right? That's one of the most exciting things about being in college, is that you spend nights staying up talking about things that you're passionate about, right? Don't forget that, and never lose that feeling, is what I'm hearing from all of you. And to live a life of and for liberation. And I love the term generational power. That's also so important about a legacy. So that is how we're going to wrap up our Global Arts and Culture panel. And I want to thank all of you for your time and such incredibly impactful thoughts that you gave us today. And I know I wrote down a whole bunch of them. We made a whole book here of things to keep folded up in a piece of paper in your pocket to look at every once in a while. So thank you very much. And I really hope that I get
a quick public service announcement.
Oh, sure.
Um,
And you can end us, Wendell, because I have to go off, but go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dean Pinder. Pleasure to meet you, and of course, co-panelists. Just wanted to say, first and foremost, Pan-African unity or we perish. Secondly, although Nigerian jollof is really delicious, Ghanaian jollof is probably better.
Senegalese,
I
actually.
love my Niger family,
Actually, Senegalese.
but it's just a little bit better.
Talking about unity, and now you're trying to
Well,
divide it on some jollof. Oh,
You
I'm
know
coming
it's
for you.
true. And I'm right here inviting you all to Ghana to come and have some Ghana jollof, especially
Exactly.
you, so
As a Nigerian,
Ghana.
as a Nigerian, I can tell you that Senegalese jollof is the best. So all of us are just wasting our energy.
Nah.
I hope you guys enjoy the football
I
match.
second that.
Yes, and we hope the Nigerians enjoy the football match as well, which was excellent, But it's all love for our Niger family. It's all love, all love.
I had asked Wendy, I just would love for each of you guys to just share, because I don't think we did it all on video, to share like what you do and where people can learn more about you, so that maybe they can edit that into the video.
Yes, and please edit in this whole bit about the jollof.
The jollof, yeah, I agree. Kevin, why don't you start?
That's so funny. I love that. Okay. Oh man. So I am part of an a cappella group that started right after I graduated in 2011 called Pentatonics. We were on a TV show called The Sing Off, and shortly after we won that, we started to kind of create our music through the medium of YouTube. And since then, we've had a lot of amazing success. 3 Grammys, a couple of platinum albums. We do arena tours around the world, which is so super exciting. And we just have so much more that we have to do, I think, on this earth. So if you want to find out more about Pentatonics, it's www.ptxofficial.com. And then my personal work is basically, how do you take classical music and give it to the people? So what does classical music sound like when it's given to people that look like us and does not look like the European aristocratic society that it started from?
Amazing. What about you, Constance?
Yeah, so I'm the community engagement coordinator at the International School of Uganda, and I do consulting work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And what my work really is like bringing the people to our school, like really reaching out to our communities, both near and far, and exposing our students to what the world has to offer and how they can also contribute to the world. So if anyone wants to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Constance Darche. I guess that's it. Facebook, but I don't think the youngins use Facebook anymore, and I'm not on TikTok, so it's just gonna have to be those two.
Thank you. Ruth?
Yes, so I currently work as the Communications and Alumni Relations Director of my former high school, SOS College. It's a high school that was set up to cater for orphans from all over Africa, brilliant orphans. So the SOS organization is a global orphanage, and all the villages in Africa, well, at some point, the head of the organization realized that the African children were not getting the opportunities that others were in the Western world. So he decided to set up a school for the very brilliant children and invite some Ghanaian students to join them as well. So it's a very competitive place, but it's beautiful. It's a microcosm of what my world looks like. Students from all over Africa engaging in different things, and the alumni, of course, who've gone out into the world. So basically, my role has been, highlighting what this school does and what the alumni are up to. But I'm transitioning to a new job with the Ministry of Finance of Ghana, also doing communication. So I'm excited to see what public service holds for me as well.
Amazing. Wendell?
So by day, I'm on faculty at McGill University. I teach and research post-Reconstruction US history and then history of the African diaspora. By night, I work on peace building and ethnic reconciliation and sort of genocide, reconstruction on the continent, especially in the Great Lakes, Eastern Congo and Burundi. And we work with some very brilliant young African boys and girls, but also young adults as well, who mostly are orphaned as a result of war and terminal disease, but also those who are coming from very impoverished backgrounds. Their parents, if they do have parents or guardians, their per annum income is probably the equivalent of like $1,300 US dollars. And they're farmers, like peasant farmers, very poor farmers. So we created a prep school where they get world-class education. And we've raised a lot of money in terms of scholarships, to get them to go to excellent schools on the continent or overseas, but with the caveat that they must return home, because we don't want to contribute to sending our brightest sisters and brothers for the benefit of other nations, but for them to acquire education, bring it home, and build our own institutions on the continent. So that's me in a nutshell. You won't be able to find me anywhere. I think our organization has a Twitter, although I don't have the credentials to log in. We have much smart individuals who work on that. And then if anyone wants to contact me, you can always find my email online. That's my main medium of communication with people.
Awesome. And I'm Olori Lalade Shiombola. I'm the founder of Nora Labs, where we're building Portal X, the gamified social ed tech platform for the new world. And so the vision of Portal X is to create an app where you can log on and tap into your goals and your purpose and the people who care about what you care about, and have events and have community around what you're truly passionate about and around actualizing your highest self. Those who knew me from my Yale days know about Noir Fest, which is one of our programs where we curate aspirational Black films. And so all our programs, Noir Fest, Noir Press, will all live on Portal X. And you can learn more about Portal X at portalx.space. Thank you so much, Wendy, and everybody who organized this. It's been amazing.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you all. Pleasure to connect.